Hey, what's up everybody? This is your boy Kenny, and this is How to Get Away with Murder, Season 5, Episode 5, and the name of this episode is It Was the Worst Day of My Life. Now, this was a perfect title because there was more than one person where they were experiencing the worst day of their lives, but that was pretty much what Nate Sr. said when he was on the stand, which I'm going to discuss. But this was a really good episode, and we got one more week where we actually, we got a few more. I think maybe 2 or 3 more episodes before we find out who got killed at the wedding. So I'm definitely on the edge of my seat, just like all of you, wondering, oh my God, who died at this wedding? And it could be a number of suspects. So pretty much the episode begins. It's a week earlier before the wedding, so things are getting close. We see that Annalise is having a session with the clinic, and she's pretty much, asking, where did I go wrong with this case? Because they're arguing Nate Sr.'s insanity plea to the courts to try to get him, into a mental facility. So here it is. She's asking, where did we go wrong? What mistake did I make? Because we definitely saw from the last episode, she took Connor off a second chair and she put Gabriel as second chair. And we see throughout this episode, Connor was acting like a straight up bitch. He had a nasty ass attitude. He kept having these little slick he kept having these really, reads and comebacks to every time Annalise would ask him a question. He would just kind of blow smoke her way because he's mad that she took him off. But dude, if you weren't being an insecure asshole, you would still be there. But we definitely knew throughout this episode that's why he was mad, because she replaced him with Gabriel. So then they start questioning who do we want to cater to, the jury or the judge? And they definitely had a debate about that. And then we actually see while they were discussing this, Connor and Oliver were discussing their wedding plans. Connor wants to get married at this bar, and he says we can just rent out the place and have our wedding there. But he was like, hold off on that because my mom is going to be returning from her church retreat, and I want to get in touch with her to see if she's available before we do any of that. So I'm like, mom's at a church retreat. It's kind of making me question, is she really supportive of Oliver's lifestyle? But in time we're going to meet her and we'll find that out. But I definitely had that question mark. Okay, religious retreat? This is going to be interesting. So pretty much they kind of get down to the fact that this is like a trial for the jury, and that's who we have to play to because they're going to be the determining factor whether we win this case or not. So pretty much we see that Annalise goes to see Nate Sr. along with Nate, and he's pretty much saying that I think I can finally win this. I can get in there and I can take the stand but Annalise is like, no, we're trying to work it out where you won't have to take the stand at all. We can just kind of play with everything that we have, and we're gonna try to get you. We're gonna try to flip this situation where we can get you out of jail. Now, I'm gonna talk about everything with Bonnie in one group because Bonnie's situation was so unique, because after the last episode she found out that Nate did his investigation and found out that her son may be alive. We literally saw in this episode Bonnie has hit rock bottom. Literally, Annalise has Frank watching Bonnie pretty much like a suicide watch after her hearing all of this past stuff that she tried to bury and got past, and now again showed back up on her doorstep. So we see that Annalise goes to the house to check on her, and she's like, she gets mad at Frank, like, dude, you had one job. And they see that Bonnie's left, but Bonnie went to go see Nate. And Nate says that, look, I did this for you. But she's like, but Bonnie was like, but you told Annalise before me. So how was it for me? He was like, because I knew Annalise I know you and Annalise are very close, and I know that she can help you through this. And she pretty much told him, you literally ripped open a part of my life that I had got past, that I had moved on from, and now I'm left with it. I'm always left with it. And she ends up leaving. She comes back and she kind of lets them know that, look, I'm not going to do nothing stupid. I just want to go talk to Nate. And pretty much we actually see later on Miller actually came by her house, and Frank definitely is very protective, but then there's also some jealousy there because now Bonnie got a man, and we know that Frank, went back and forth between Bonnie and Laurel, and Laurel broke up with him, and now Bonnie got a boyfriend, but he's staying with Bonnie. Miller came there trying to be cool, like, yo, bro, what's good? I've been trying to reach out to reach out to Bonnie. I've been calling her and she hasn't been returning my calls, and he was like, she's sick. And he's like, look, I know I gave her that HR form, but she can rip it up because it doesn't matter to me. And she was like, well, I'll give her the message. He's like, no, I would like to tell her myself. And he had also had some food or something that he brought for her, and he was like, well, I'll take care of it, bro. And then slammed the door on Miller. I was like, Frank, you need to stop. Because a lot of it is due to the fact that you're jealous that Bonnie got a new boo, but then you're also protective, so therefore it's both. It's like he's very protective of Bonnie because, we've seen that, Frank found her father and killed his ass for all the shit he did to her. So we know that, yeah, Frank is very protective of Bonnie, but then there's also some jealousy there, too. And we definitely see that Bonnie is just in bed crying her eyes out. She's going through it. He was saying that, look, I know you know the truth, but it's up to you on how you decide how you want to move from this. And Frank lets her know that, look, you have the option to do nothing. And he says that you deserve to be happy, and nobody deserves happiness more than you. She says that, look, we can forget that you knew about this, and you can just go on with your life and do what you want to do. But you don't have to open this wound if you don't want to. But we see that she finally gets out of her her depression. She starts going through the case, and then we see that she finally reaches out to Miller, and she pretty much tells him everything. She tells him about how from the age of 5 and her sister Julie was 6, they were molested by their father. Their mom was okay with it because it was how they made their money. He would do videos with them, and then he pretty much was pimping out his daughters to these rich men or powerful people where they can make money off of them. And she said that when she was 15, she got pregnant and she had a son, but her parents told her that the baby died, but she just found out that the baby might be alive. And she's telling all this to Miller, and you really kind of see Miller somewhat tear up, where he's like, you're the bravest person I ever met, and I love you, and I'm here for you. And we see that Bonnie just went into his arms and just cried. And then we see that later on, Bonnie lets Annalise know that she's going to go see her sister Julie, and that she's with a friend, and we all know it's Miller. But Annalise is like, are you sure he's going to be able to handle all of this? She was like, look, I'll call you when I'm done. And we see she knocks on the door, and we actually see her and Julie see each other face to face in probably years since they've seen each other. And we can definitely tell that that's why Julie, became a drug addict and all of that. I mean, that's some traumatic crap, that you're being sexually violated by your own father, and then your mother and your father are pimping you out as children to grown men to have sex. I mean, to tell you the truth, it's by sheer will that Bonnie was able. I mean, if Bonnie didn't have Annalise, she could have fallen into the same traps as Julie. So here it is, she's seeing her past, and she's still seeing that her sister is still groveling off of what actually took place. But yeah, that was definitely a heavy scene. So then we get to the actual case of Nate Sr.'s insanity plea. We see that the prosecutor is actually played by Joseph C. Phillips. We definitely remember him playing the role of Martin on The Cosby Show. But one of my favorite roles of his is when he played Wayman Tisdale in Strictly Business. That's a romantic comedy with Tommy Davidson and Halle Berry. If you haven't seen it, you need to check that out. That's a classic. And I loved him in that role. But he's pretty much the prosecuting attorney on this case. And pretty much what ends up happening is that the prosecutor pretty much pulls a stunt that nobody saw coming. And what he did is that he brought up a letter that Nate wrote when he was 14 about his father. And pretty much said that, I'm more safer with my father, and, because it was a letter that he sent to the parole board because he was up for parole. He wrote this letter at the age of 14 that his father, is a menace and he deserves to be in jail, and I'm more safer knowing that he's behind bars. And no one saw that coming. So, of course, they bring it up to the clinic, and we see that Connor is still being an asshole, taking jabs like, well, you need to kind of talk to your second chair, because if he would have did his job, he would have figured out, that there was another pool. But then we see that Gabriel was about to get up and was about to fight Connor's ass, because he getting tired of Connor talking this shit. He's like, dude, you set your ass in the back of the courtroom and you didn't say anything, but now you got everything to say now in the classroom. What that say about your ass? And then, Annalise stopped her. She's like, look, this is law school, not a damn daycare. So get out your fucking feelings. But the person that brought it out was Laurel. She said the reason why that you didn't have an upper hand on the situation is because you didn't see the letter coming. And the reason why you didn't is because you're very close to the client. Because of her closeness to Nate, it didn't dawn on her to think about that he could use something that Nate wrote as a teenager against him now. So of course, while he's on the stand, and on top of it, the prosecutor called Nate to the stand. So he's cross-examining him, and he made them read the letter, which upsets his father. And his father was like, that was my chance to get out of jail. And I remember after that, everything got dark for me, and then I ended up getting into the shoe, and then life just became dark. So this pretty much says that everything I went through behind being locked up and me being in that shoe was because of your ass. You started this shit. You the reason why I went through all this hell. And he was just so damn mad. He's like, man, I don't even want to look at his ass. I don't even want to speak to him again. Well, pretty much Annalise says, well, you damn well better want to speak to him again, because at the end of the day, he's the one that's going to help you win this case. And who better to represent you than somebody that loves you? So Annalise was like, your son loves you. And at the time, your son was a kid. And he later on, because pretty much on the stand, he says he don't remember writing the letter. It was teenage angst or whatever. But later on, when him and Annalise have a one-on-one together, he lets her know, I remember writing the letter, and I'm going to tell you why. So he pretty much said I lied on the stand when I said I don't remember writing it. I remember when I wrote it, and I remember why. Because he said the first time I saw my father getting arrested by the police, I attacked the cops for hurting my dad. But then after seeing a second and a third and a fourth time him getting arrested, I began to see the cops as the good guys, and that's what made me a cop, so I wouldn't end up like him. So seeing his father constantly getting arrested, because his father was a drug dealer, and and he kept violating his probation, but he was selling drugs to feed his family. So here it is. At first he was on his dad's side, but then when his father kept getting locked up, he pretty much started to think, well, the cops are the good guys and my dad's the bad guy, so that's why he wrote that letter. But then Annalise lets him know that, look, if you keep in this mindset, you're going to let the system destroy you just like it destroyed your dad. But she says that, look, we're going to win this. I didn't take this case to the Supreme Court to get lost back here in Pennsylvania. We're going to win this thing. So definitely that we saw that go down. Also, we also see that Michaela and Asher are having a little something going on, and to some people are thinking that they're actually, that they kind of went back to sleeping with each other, but that definitely wasn't the case. What ends up happening is that they're getting together because both of them are the best men for Connor and Oliver's wedding. So they're getting together because they're planning to do a joint bachelor party for the both of them. And they're kind of like making plans, but we see when they met with each other at the firm, because Asher came to the court when they were, working with Nate Sr.'s case, and she's like, I thought I told you not to meet me here. You don't want to cause a scene. And he was like, yeah, you know what? I still hate you, but at the end of the day, this thing is bigger than us. So in a way, I respect Asher that he's reaching out to Michaela to plan this party for his gay bros, and he's let somewhat of his animosity go to work with her. And then he asks, like, well, how's Bonnie? I haven't seen Bonnie in a few days. And she was like, oh, so you're trying to get back with Bonnie? He's like, no, I'm just concerned. And she was like, mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm allowed to have female friends, Michaela. I'm like, Asher is so crazy. But yeah, that's exactly why they're hooking up. But at first you were thinking that they were, smashing each other. But comes to find out that they're just planning the bachelor party for Connor and Oliver together. Because even later on, they asked, like, are you two sleeping together? Because both Connor and Oliver were kind of looking like, why you motherfuckers all chummy all of a sudden? What the hell's going on? And that's when they let them know that they're going to do this joint bachelor party for them. But then Oliver finds out that his mother is coming that week. And then to top it off, he's also invited Connor's mom. And I'm like, wow, this is really going to be interesting to see both of their mothers, being put in the situation, and see how they're going to react to their gay sons tying the knot. That's going to be an interesting situation to see how that's going to play out. So I can't wait to see it. Alright, so let me move. So with that, moving on. So then we see that back at the clinic, Michaela, pretty much tells Annalise she congratulates her for arguing this case against, Dr. Charmaine, who pretty much is refuting the other psychiatrist who said that because of Nate Sr. being in the shoe, it made him have a psychotic break. This doctor, Dr. Charmaine, is refuting that, saying that he was in his right mind and he's just using this as sanity plea to get out of jail. So pretty much, Dr. Charmaine was the deep throat in this case. So what ends up happening is that when Michaela goes to see Asher to plan the party, she pretty much says that she needs information to discredit Dr. Charmaine. And of course, Asher is not with it because he's like, first of all, we said there was going to be no work talk. We was going to only be talking about something else. And what is it? You want me to help you? And then Annalise, he says that it's not about me or Annalise. Do it for Nate because, we see that, Ash is working with the DA's office and Nate works there too. So he's like, Nate has always been there for us, so do this for him. So then we see that Asher goes to Annalise. Him working at the DA's, he found out where she lived. And he pretty much says, I got your whole little thing, on Dr. Shemaine. But he's like, it's a tit for tat. Let me know what's going on with Bonnie. And she's like, it's nothing going on. And he says, well, you ain't going to get this information if you don't tell me. And she looked at him and she says, what do you think? And immediately we remember when he was dating Bonnie, Annalise pulled him by the chain and told him about Bonnie's past. So immediately he knew exactly what it was, and he was like, what can I do? She says, give her some space. But he says that in this case, you're going to find a connection, that's going to blow this whole thing up. And she was like, what do you mean by that? He was like, hello, governor. So they cross-examine Dr. Shemaine, and they present the fact that he has been sent by the governor and that he's working with the governor because she just promoted him, to be a part of the mental health faculty, of the state. So here it is. He's got this high power position and he's working directly for the governor. And he was and that because of his affiliation with the governor, they were able to refute his testimony because it was considered, it was pretty much considered unbiased. So they pretty much, his whole testimony got shot down because everybody knows that the governor got it out for Annalise. So here it is, you working for the governor, you're in this case, and you're discrediting this witness when yet there was another psychiatrist who said that him being in the hole made him have a psychotic break, and it pretty much messed up his mind. So I thought that was pretty good. So then we pretty much see that after all of that went down, Laurel decides to meet up with Gabriel, and she says, I want to help you, with your case. And he was like, well, why do you want to help me? She says that, well, one day I'm probably going to be second chair and I'm going to need you for help. And we definitely see there is some chemistry there between the two of them. As I said before, Gabriel got his eye on Laurel. So then we see that Nate Jr. goes to the prison to see his father. And pretty much Nate Sr. was like, you know what? I'm getting tired of you and Annalise speaking for me. I want my day in court. I want to actually talk to the jury and let them hear my voice. Because he says, we're losing this case right now. I want to go on the stand and I want to fight for myself. I no longer want to be called crazy and violent and uncontrollable. I want to show that, I'm a man, and that, at that moment, I lost my mind, and he was saying that, I can't get Annalise to convince me of this. And then Nate was like, well, what makes you think I can? And Nate Sr. was like, I see how she looks at you. You can make this happen. I was like, okay, Nate Sr. Nate Sr. ain't dumb now. Because he was saying that I was even looking at the jury and the prosecution. We're losing this, and I need to get on the stand and show who I am and that I'm not this nasty person that they're trying to paint me out to be. So we see that Gabriel gets a call, and on the caller ID it says her. We've come to find out her is Annalise. Now I'm like, why isn't she Professor Keating or Attorney Annalise or Attorney Keating, whatever? Why do you have her as her inside your phone? Which made me is making me question what is Gabriel's aim and why is he there and what's really going on with him. But she calls him and lets him know that I need you to look over 50 years of insanity cases where the client took the stand, because Nate Sr. is taking the stand. And he's like, man, this is crazy. She's like, get on board, bruh. So Nate pretty much got Annalise, to put Nate Sr. on the stand. Then we get a scene with Connor and Oliver. Connor and Oliver are having wild sex with each other. They just had sex. And Oliver just called it out. He was like, man, I know you're having fun with all this angry sex is getting. I mean, hell yeah, I'm loving it and everything. But dude, you need to be putting your energy into the case instead of putting it in the bedroom, taking it out on me. You need to be putting it in this case and you can actually land a win. And he was like, yeah, well, I'm just not with this and, I just don't care at this point. And he was like, don't let Annalise scare you like that, if anything. He's like, well, maybe that's just what it is. Maybe I'm just maybe I'm just not good enough. And Oliver was like, that's not the man I'm marrying. I want the badass social justice guy who fights for the good of the people. That's the man I want to marry, and that's the man you need to be right now. I'm like, okay, Oliver, get his ass together and tell him stop acting like a spoiled child. Going around with a damn temper tantrum, talking out his ass. So I think that was one thing that kind of got Connor to snap back. Like, bruh, you got the knowledge to help her win this case, and you're holding back because you're pissed off. So therefore, we see that that Laurel is working with Gabriel. As far as all the cases, they seem that no one has ever taken the stand in an insanity case. We see that little Christopher's there, and she's kind of talking to him. He's like, do you really talk to him like that? And she was like, yes, I heard that talking to the baby helps with his development, and that he won't end up becoming a serial killer. And he was like, serial killer? What? Does he come from bad genes? Now, when he said that shit, I was like, okay, Gabriel, you kind of coming off that you on some sneaky shit, because why would you throw a jab like that? And it really put me besides myself. And she was like, well, personally, I don't know about the father. She says that, look, the father's not around. And he's like, well, I thought that, he may have been involved in somehow. She's like, well, he's not around. And she's like, what about your father? She says that, hey, mine's dipped out before I was even born. And we see that Frank is watching them, and we see that Frank, yes, he's on to Gabriel because he thinks that Gabriel's up to some shit. But then we also see that jealousy because now Laurel is getting sweet on Gabriel. And because we definitely remember he has cameras inside Gabriel's apartment, so he can see what Gabriel's doing. And he's right across the hall from Asher, who's staying in Wes's old apartment. And pretty much we see that Nate Sr. takes the stand. He pretty much talks about, the lights was always on in the shoe. And he said that, and she asks him, did you actually have something in there to kind of keep you going through those rough times? And he says that, yeah, I had a picture of me and my son, but then the guards took it, and he says, I began to lose my mind because it was like they took my son from me. The one thing I had to hold on dear to in that rough moment, they literally stripped from me. And they said when they finally let me out, I was scared. And when that prisoner, started messing with me, I was a bomb and I exploded. And he says that the shoe made me sick and I wasn't myself. So then we see the prosecutor cross-examines him, and he literally is badgering him to get him to trip up on his own words. And he was like, so what did the guy say to you? He says that he told me that he wanted to fight the boxer. But he says, but I thought you were having hallucinations at the time, palpitations and all of that. And he was like, well, yeah, I was, and like pretty much Annalise was standing there like, nah, he's badgering my witness, and he says that, so it seemed to me that based on what you said, you actually recall what you did that day, and you recall actually killing him. And he says that, and like they're going back and forth, and Nate Sr. was like, well, it was the worst day of my life. And he was like, oh, so you actually have regret. You actually feel sorry about this. So it makes me question, were you really insane at all? Or are you just using this in this court to get off? And I was just like, oh, he was really playing dirty. And like Nate Senior was like, look, I'm not stupid, okay? Let me answer the damn question and stop trying to cut me off because, you know, the prosecutor's trying to win. So pretty much we see that they now have to do their closing arguments or whatever. And we see that in the they're in the clinic and they're saying, what can we do what's the last thing we can do to win this case? Because right now it's looking like the prosecution's winning. And Connor said that, like, yeah, the prosecution's winning right now. And he was like, so do you have any options? She's like, I think you know the answer to that. Still being an asshole. But they asked, what can we do? And no one has any answers, but Gabriel says that, look, we can do a mistrial because they were saying that Nate's father was selling cocaine and all of that, but he was only selling marijuana. And, you know, pretty much you definitely want to do a mistrial, and this is better than a guilty plea because, remember, he's your face case, and if you lose this one, this will detonate all the other cases that's coming up behind this one. So she pretty much thought about it. So therefore, we go to the actual closing argument. We actually go to the closing arguments. The prosecutor has made his, and then all of a sudden, Annalise, thinking that she was going to ask for a mistrial, she decided to do something else. She goes to the jury and she says 492,750 minutes is how long Nate Sr. was in the shoe. You know, in a space that was smaller than a parking space. And solidarity, and even psychiatrists have proven time and time again that sometimes solitary confinement can actually cause a psychological break in the person's mind. And she was like, I want you to put yourself in his shoes. And while she's talking, we see that Gabriel had found the measurements of the solitary room and actually did a square using tape. And she said that here it is, this man spent all this time in the shoe and all he heard was this. You could hear a pin drop, and I was like, Annalise, you better work, bitch. She did that shit because that was very moving. And I was like, she got this shit. Because you see the jury was really moved by that. How is it that man was in there for almost a year and all he heard was silence? That will cause anybody to go crazy. But then again, later on, we see that Annalise meets up with Connor, and she's saying that, yeah, I think you got a chance at winning this case. And Annalise is like, well, yeah, because it was your idea. And she knows her students. She know that even though Gabriel presented it to her, she knew damn well that it was Connor, because we definitely get a scene where Connor gives the information to Gabriel, and he's saying that, well, why won't you give it to Annalise yourself? She said, look, Annalise don't want to deal with my ass right now, but this is our last chance to win this case. Give this to Annalise, and it's gonna work. And we see that whole situation was Connor. So finally, Connor rose to the occasion, and she apologizes to him for taking him off of second chair because he was the right man for that case. But Connor fucked it up for himself, being an asshole. So pretty much they now about to give the verdict, and they find Nate Sr. not guilty, and they're gonna pretty much put him in a state facility. Then we see that afterwards, you know, this is a big win for Annalise. This is her face case, and she's won, and she's talking to the press, and pretty much she's talking about that, you know, what I'm doing is trying to clean up all the injustices in the system and everything. You know, I'm pretty much cleaning up everybody's mess. And pretty much the governor, they started asking about the governor. She says, like, look, I know the governor means well. She's got millions of dollars she's overseeing, but obviously she feels some kind of way that everything that she's throwing at me, I'm pretty much flipping things around, and she's realizing that she can't break me. No matter what you do, I'm gonna rise to the occasion. And then we see that the governor is this woman, and she was like, get her up in here and see if she can say this shit to my face. I was like, oh, you nasty little bitch. So you doing some fuck shit. But then again, the governor's against it because it's making the state look bad that they've had these public prosecutors who have not been given, effective representation to their clients. So a lot of these clients are in jail because they didn't get good representation during their cases. So then we see that Nate Sr. forgives Nate, and he was like, if 12 juries can forgive me, I can forgive my own son. And that was very moving because we finally seen father and son hug each other, and it was a very moving moment. Then we see Gabriel and Laurel. She's pretty much saying, why don't you be up there with Annalise? This was part of your case. And he was like, yeah, but I think I'm right where I am. And they kind of getting close. And then next thing you know, she sees Frank's ass. So she confronts Frank, and she was like, what? She's like, what the hell are you doing here? He was like, well, I'm not here to see you. I'm here to see Annalise. He's like, oh yeah, to talk about Gabriel, right? I kind of put it together that here it is, Gabriel, you pretty much talk about, you're supposed to be doing this background check on Annalise's students, but that's bullshit because here it is, Gabriel is living in the same building that Wes lived in, and then he tells me he found out about a building by a guy that he plays basketball with, so I want to know, who the hell is he, Frank? I was like, that damn Laurel is sharp, and she knew that Frank was on to something. And I think Frank is, but I think in time we're going to find out about it. Because I'm beginning to think that Gabriel is not all good as he's projecting himself to be. One, he got that flip phone, so definitely it's kind of putting out there that, there's something there with Gabriel. So then it goes back to the day of the wedding where Connor is looking for Oliver. And he's going through the parking lot saying, Connor, like, Oliver, where are you? You better come out or I'm going to kill you. And then the next thing you know, we look and we see that his mom is in the parking lot getting her box played with. And guess who's playing the tune? Asher's ass. And I'm like, Asher, that's a #1 rule of guy code. You don't mess with the moms, bruh. And we see that Connor had this look in his face like he gon' fuck Asher up. You up in the parking lot eating out his mommy on his wedding day. So I'm like, this is gonna be good. But that's where it left off, y'all. If I missed anything, put it down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. But subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you get notifications every time I drop a video. Also, follow me on all of my social platforms. I have them all listed in the description box. Also, like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. And now I'll be back with the next episode of How to Get Away with Murder. So until next time, everybody, take care.